Most people chase attention. That's why they're disposable. This dangerous psychological secret flips the game. There is a lie you've been taught, that being kind, available, loyal, consistent makes people value you. It doesn't. It makes you predictable, and predictability kills psychological tension. People don't fear losing what they believe they already own. This is not opinion. This is behavioral psychology. And once you understand this mechanism, you stop chasing respect. You stop forcing connection. People begin to feel it, quietly, subconsciously, relentlessly. Let's expose the secret. The scarcity illusion. Why availability destroys value. Here's the forbidden insight. Human attachment is not driven by love. It's driven by perceived loss. The brain is wired to fear losing access more than it desires gaining affection. This is called loss aversion. People value what feels limited. They ignore what feels guaranteed. When you are always available, your presence stops registering as a reward. It becomes background noise, a psychological constant. Example: the employee who always says yes, works harder, stays late, never leaves. They don't get promoted. The one who can walk away does. Why? Because scarcity creates psychological tension, and tension creates respect. The more accessible you are, the less valuable you feel. But scarcity alone isn't enough, because absence without impact is just invisibility. Next, we expose the second mechanism. Emotional replacement fear. Why you must be irreplaceable. Here's what most people get wrong. They try to be liked. That's weak strategy. The brain doesn't protect what it can replace. People fear you losing you only when you occupy a unique psychological role. Not a nice role, a useful role, a specific role. Example: the friend who always listens, replaceable. The friend who challenges your thinking, hard to replace. The partner who adapts to everything, disposable. The partner who brings a specific emotional state, calm, clarity, confidence, irreplaceable. The secret: people don't miss you, they miss how their nervous system feels around you. Calm, grounded, sharpened, safe. When you become the emotional baseline, your absence destabilizes them. But here's the dangerous part. Most people sabotage this power without realizing it. Let's expose how. The over-explaining trap. Why talking too much makes you weak. This is where value dies. Over-explaining, over-justifying, over-sharing. Every time you explain yourself unnecessarily, you lower your perceived authority. Authority is silence with intention. The brain associates brevity with power. Example: two people decline an invitation. Person 1 says, "Sorry, I can't because I'm tired and I had a long day, and maybe next time." Person 2 says, "I can't make it." Who feels stronger? Silence forces the mind to fill gaps, and the mind fills gaps with importance. Mystery is not manipulation, it is psychological gravity. The less you leak your internal state, the more people project value onto you. But silence alone doesn't create fear of loss. There's one more missing element, and it's the most uncomfortable one. The walk-away signal, the moment power shifts. Here is the exposed truth most people avoid. People test your boundaries subconsciously, not because they're evil, but because the brain needs to know limits. Every ignored text, every late reply, every subtle disrespect is a test. If you tolerate it, you communicate one thing: I'm afraid to lose you. And the moment you signal fear, you lose leverage.
The most powerful psychological signal is this: you are willing to walk away calmly, not emotionally, not dramatically, silently. Example: the partner who says, "I won't accept this behavior," and follows through. No begging, no threats, just absence. The brain panics when access is removed without explanation. That's when fear activates. But there's a final layer, the one that separates respected individuals from unforgettable ones. This is where most people fail. The internal shift, why self-validation makes you dangerous. Here's the final secret. People fear you losing you when you no longer fear being alone. Neediness is detectable, even when hidden. The nervous system leaks it. When your happiness depends on others, they feel it and they pull away. When your validation comes from within, people lean in. Why? Because self-sufficiency signals abundance, and abundance creates perceived value. You stop proving, you stop chasing, you stop explaining, you select. This is not arrogance, it's internal alignment. And when someone senses that losing you wouldn't destroy you, that's when it terrifies them, because they know they can't control you. Most people spend their lives trying to be chosen. The powerful ones make others afraid not to choose them. The difference is subtle but irreversible. Once you shift internally, the dynamic never goes back. If this exposed something uncomfortable, that's the point. Subscribe if you want the next layer, because what we didn't say yet is more dangerous than what we revealed. Silence is not empty, it is threatening. And the moment you stop explaining yourself, people begin explaining you to themselves. That's the secret, and it's already working against you or for you. Forbidden truth. Silence activates something primitive, something uncomfortable. The human brain hates unfinished stories. It craves closure. When you remove your voice, the mind replaces it with imagination, and imagination is always stronger than reality. This is why silence is feared and why weak people talk too much. Let's expose the mechanism. Cognitive vacuum. Why silence pulls people in. Here's the secret mechanism. The brain cannot tolerate uncertainty. When information is missing, it fills the gap automatically. This is called cognitive completion. Silence creates a vacuum, and the mind rushes to fill it. Example: you send a long message. They reply with one sentence. What happens? Your thoughts spiral. Your focus shifts, your emotional energy transfers. They didn't chase you, your brain chased them. Whoever speaks less controls the psychological frame. But silence alone isn't power. Used incorrectly, it backfires. Let's expose the difference.
Weak silence versus power silence. Most people get this wrong. Not all silence is equal. Weak silence comes from fear. Power silence comes from self-control. People can sense the difference. Weak silence feels anxious. Power silence feels grounded. Example: someone ignores you because they're afraid. That feels desperate. Someone goes quiet because they don't need to react. That feels dominant. The brain reads emotional subtext instantly. Silence only works when you are emotionally detached from the outcome. Otherwise, it leaks neediness. So how do you make silence felt instead of ignored? That's the next layer. The withdrawal effect. Why removing energy creates obsession. Here's the exposed truth. People don't miss presence. They miss energy, attention, validation, emotional responsiveness. When you suddenly withdraw that energy, the nervous system notices immediately. Example: you stop initiating, you stop reacting,
You stop explaining. Nothing dramatic, just absence. The brain interprets this as loss of access, and loss triggers obsession. Why? Because the mind needs to regain equilibrium. Obsession is not attraction, it's discomfort, and discomfort drives behavior. But there's a dangerous mistake here, one that destroys all leverage. Let's expose it. Over-withdrawal, when silence kills interest. Here's what most people do wrong. They disappear completely. That's not silence, that's erasure. Silence only works when contrast exists. You must be felt before you're absent. Example, someone who was emotionally present then becomes selectively unavailable. That creates shock. Someone who never was impactful, going silent means nothing. You can't withdraw value you never established. Silence amplifies existing value. It doesn't create it. So what creates lasting psychological weight? The final mechanism. Unpredictable consistency, the most dangerous signal. This is the highest level. Not chaos, not availability. Controlled unpredictability. You are consistent in standards, in boundaries, in self-respect, but unpredictable in access. Sometimes present, sometimes distant, always calm, never reactive. The brain cannot pattern you, and what cannot be patterned cannot be controlled. That's when fear of loss locks in, because the mind never knows when access will close again. Cold truth. Silence isn't about ignoring people. It's about refusing to overinvest. It's about letting others feel the weight of your absence without explanation. Once they associate your presence with stability and your absence with discomfort, you no longer need effort. Your absence speaks for you. Most people think power is dominance. It's not. Power is emotional neutrality. And the next level is learning how to make people self-correct their behavior without you saying a word. Subscribe, because this part explains how influence works without persuasion. And once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. The highest level of power is when people change their behavior before you ever confront them. No arguments, no explanations, no words. This is the final secret. Final psychological hook, the hidden truth. Most people think influence comes from communication. It doesn't. Communication is what weak people rely on after power is already lost. Real power operates before conversation. It shapes behavior without requests, without warnings, without emotion. By the time words appear, the outcome is already decided. Let's expose how this works. Section 1. Behavioral mirroring. Why people adapt to you. Here's the first mechanism. Humans constantly scan for social feedback, not consciously, subconsciously. They adjust behavior based on what is rewarded and what is ignored. You don't need to correct people. You respond selectively. Respect gets access. Disrespect gets distance. No lectures, no anger, no explanations. Example, someone interrupts you. You don't argue, you don't complain, you pause, then continue when they stop. Your calm signals dominance. The brain registers hierarchy instantly. People don't change because you ask, they change because the environment shifts. But there's a deeper layer, one that creates self-enforcement. Section 2. Emotional consequences without confrontation. Here's what most people miss. Punishment isn't effective. Consequences are. Punishment is loud. Consequences are quiet. Example, someone crosses a boundary. You don't react emotionally. You reduce access. Less attention, less availability, less emotional warmth. Nothing dramatic. The nervous system feels the loss, and the brain asks one question: what did I do wrong? That question is power. The moment you explain consequences, you weaken them. Silence forces self-reflection. But how do you prevent people from testing you again? That's next. The no negotiation signal. Why standards must feel final. Here's the exposed truth. Negotiable boundaries invite repeated violations. Firm standards end testing. But firmness is not aggression, it's consistency. Your reactions never change, your tone never shifts, your standards don't move. Example: someone disrespects you once, access reduces. They apologize, behavior improves, access returns. No grudge, no lecture. The pattern becomes clear. The brain learns fast. People test until the outcome becomes predictable. Once it's predictable, they stop. But there's one final layer, the most dangerous one. Emotional independence, why they can't control you. This is where true power locks in. You are unaffected by approval or rejection, not pretending, actually unaffected. Your mood doesn't rise when praised. Your mood doesn't drop when challenged. Why this matters? Emotional independence makes you uncontrollable, and what can't be controlled is respected and feared. Example: someone tries to provoke you. You remain calm, neutral, unmoved. They feel exposed, because manipulation only works on people who need something. The less you need emotionally, the more leverage you have socially. Now we end this with the final rule, the one that everything depends on. Here it is. People fear losing you when your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. You don't demand respect, you assume it. You don't chase connection, you allow it. You don't warn people, you let consequences teach. Your silence is calm, your absence is felt, your standards are non-negotiable. This combination does one thing. It forces people to regulate themselves around you. That is the highest form of influence. This was never about manipulation. It was about alignment. When your internal state is stable, your boundaries are clear, and your energy is selective, people adapt, or they leave. Either way, you win. Most people spend their lives reacting to others. The powerful ones become the reference point. Everything adjusts around them. This is where the series ends. What you do with it is on you. If this series changed how you see people, stay. More will come, but only for those who can handle it.